Let's think for a moment about some of the thought-provoking ideas presented by John Taylor Gatto. It is worth listening to what he has to say, whether we agree with him or not. He's a former teacher, having taught adolescents for 30 years and twice New York State Teacher of the Year. So he has some legitimate thoughts and insights on the way schools might be influencing or shaping the lives of our teens. Now, we're thinking about adolescent development, and we're thinking about learning environments. So Gatto's talk it's worth considering. As you heard in his talk, Gatto introduced the concept of the paradox of extended childhood, and he raised concerns about how schools might function as instruments of social engineering with adverse effects, or could we even say potentially sinister effects on individual development. What does this mean? What's he talking about when he is talking about social engineering? Gatto suggests that our education system doesn't just teach you academic subjects. It also shapes behaviors, attitudes, and perceptions in ways that might serve broader managerial goals rather than students' personal growth. Students are, in other words, engineered. And this process is what he refers to as social engineering. Consider his analogy. Just as a falconer might hood a falcon to control its behavior, or weights might be added to a racehorse to alter its performance, the education system might impose structures that limit young people's natural abilities and inclinations. In these cases, the animal is reduced to an object serving the purposes of the trainer or other people. Similarly, Gatto argues that schools might reduce students to instruments or objects serving societal or institutional objectives that have little to do with students' personal aspirations. This is what philosophers often refer to as the instrumental perspective. And in this case, the school institution is thought of as an instrument, and the student is objectified and manipulated in the process. Gatto points out that the term of childhood has been deliberately extended. Historically, young people took on significant responsibilities at much earlier ages. Now we typically think of adolescence stretching well into the late teens and even early 20s. According to Gatto, this extension isn't a natural evolution, but deliberately designed by influential figures who benefit from a populace that's kept in a prolonged state of dependency. Why would this be the case? Well, prolonging childhood can lengthen the time that individuals are more controllable and easier to manage. Furthermore, if one is kept from fully comprehending their potential and is confined within restrictive educational structures, they're less likely to challenge the status quo or to think critically about the world around them. So what does all of this mean for us as future educators? Well, this brings us to a critical point. There might be a conflict between the purposes of social managers, those who design and implement educational policies, and the authentic purposes of individuals, families, and communities. While the system or institution might prioritize conformity, efficiency, and control, students and their families might value creativity, independence, and personal growth. This probably sounds a bit out there. It is certainly not something that's typically talked about in school settings. But Gatto emphasizes that we rarely hear education framed this way because it's inconvenient for those who control the flow of information. Major corporations and institutions might prefer a compliant population that's been conditioned to accept things as they are. Major corporations and institutions are not about to advertise that they're deliberately controlling or manipulating people. So consider this in terms of your own life. Do you ever feel that the school environment sometimes limits your ability to think independently or to develop your unique talents? Are there moments when the rules and structures seem more about controlling behavior than fostering learning? Have you ever questioned why certain subjects are taught the way they are, or why you have little say in your educational journey? Finally, if Gatto's right, is it a problem? Autonomy and responsibility are essential for personal growth and maturity. When you're given the opportunity to make choices, face challenges, and learn from failures, you develop the skills and confidence needed for adulthood. However, if the education system restricts these opportunities, it might hinder your development. As you know, societal expectations often paint adolescence as a time of rebellion or irresponsibility. But is this a fair representation? Furthermore, is this a natural phase, or is it a response to being kept in a prolonged state of dependency? Let me say that again. Societal expectations often paint adolescence as a time of rebellion or irresponsibility. But is this a natural phase, or is it a response to being kept in a prolonged state of dependency? I wonder about that when over and over again I encounter young people who show passions, behaviors, abilities, reason, work ethic, and creativity that seem to be equal to any other adult when they're acting in adult-like situations. This is not to say that the adolescent has the same background understanding that many adults or experts might, but it does seem to put into question whether adolescents require unique learning environments. It seems to put into question whether adolescents need to be treated differently than adults. Gatto challenges us to critically examine the role of adolescent education. He raises the possibility that schools might be limiting our young people's potential under the guise of structure and preparation. For us, as future educators, it's essential that we reflect on whether the education system is serving young people's best interests or if it's shaping them to fit a predefined mold that benefits others more than it benefits the adolescents we serve.